All right, so we are back with the Journey to Ascension. Let me try to fix my Facebook here. Shout out to everyone who is on this Ascension journey with me, both following my podcast and who are just on their own individual journey, right? This is not for the weak at heart. So let me fix my Facebook, make sure my Facebook is straight. And then we're gonna begin. All right, looks like that's good. Let me change the privacy. Facebook has this thing where, and again, this is streaming to all my social media. So I think we are good, and let's get to it. So I want to start with something that, when it happened to me this week, it was like, James, add that to your podcast. And for those who are familiar with Zumba, I've just entered into the realm of Zumba. I don't think I'm going to do it anymore, but there is nothing more humbling than hopping into a Zoom class where one body part is going one way, another body part is going another. And so it was, I think it was a couple of days ago, I was in the gym, just my regular time. It was abs working, always working on my abs. And I just peeked and saw, wait, there's another Zoom class. Now the first one was a complete disaster. I don't even know what, they need to burn the tape on that one. But I said, you know what? I could, that's an option. But, it's an option, but this looks like a much younger crowd than was in there before. I could really embarrass myself in there, but, I went on ahead, went in, still everything was going every which way, but it stood out to me because it was the ego that was in its job to protect me, was giving me every reason why I shouldn't go, right? I already knew I was going to go. I still was feeling a certain way about it, but I knew I was going to go. But it was just the awareness of how the ego prevents us from stepping into new adventures, new life, new ways of being, because of its familiarity and its security with the known. So I wanted to start off this podcast talking about that because it's very subtle at times how it shows up, which is a segue into what I'm talking about next. It was all of these are my journal entries from when I began the Ascension Journey, which I thought was just, I didn't know what the fuck it was, to be honest with you, but I thought it was more of a spiritual awakening type thing, but I was confused because I had already gone through that, not understanding that later on in this journey that I was actually on the Ascension Journey. So the very next entry in my journal was about being in this deep, whether it was the thoughts that didn't have an off switch, whether it was the fear-based addictive behavior, where is this coming from, how do I stop this, where it was the ideations that would show up, whether it was the darkness, the dark cloud that can follow you as you are going through what for me was another ego death, was another reset. It was a reset to go deeper, but at the time it was like, I don't have a clue what this is about. So I'm at this entry point of the journal, I'm recognizing that I'm in this deep. However, if you watched in my introductory episode last week, I believe that I had my blueprint. Like last week, I chronicled the 8 things that, James, this is going to be our anchor. This is going to be what we can maybe grab a hold on and concentrate on And if you want to know what those 8 things are, just pull up my last episode, either on YouTube or if it's on whatever social media you're watching on, it's probably on there as well. So I'm at this point in the journey. I'm gassed up. I know where I'm trying to get to. I have a map to get me there. I still don't realize I'm on an ascension journey at this point. There are still darker days ahead, but at least I'm moving now. And my first task I've been given by my higher self is understanding what the fuck is going on. Understanding this mechanism called the mind that just won't turn off, that won't shut up. And not only will it not shut up, but it won't shut up about negativity, about worth, about just all these things that cause me to spiral and can cause us to spiral even more, right? And I guess what strikes me the most is that most of us don't fully comprehend the ego, or its influence on our life. I started this with talking about the subtlety of even trying to prevent me from just going into a Zoom class. The ego is what, for me, is the personification of what religious people call Satan or the devil. Like, that's the personification of the ego. So even when in one of the religious books it talks about being more subtle than any beast of the field, that's how I look at the ego. Like, the ego is extremely, extremely subtle. And as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about all the ways that even among the spiritual awakening community, and really kind of setting the difference between being spiritual awakening and being on the Ascension Journey. The Ascension Journey, you know everything is one. The spiritual awakening journey, you have some sense of awareness that you are more than this body and mind, but there are still moments of judgment. This is better than that. This is right. That is wrong. There's that subtlety of the ego, even in the spiritual awakening journey. In the Ascension Journey, you're able to step back at some point and go, wait, that's how the ego operates. That's not me, right? But in the spiritual awakening journey, it's a process. Look what he did, she did. How could you say this to me? There's not the deeper understanding that everything is just a reflection. There's just a reflection, so that when we judge, we are actually judging ourselves. When we blame, we're actually blaming ourselves. When we are accusing, we're actually accusing ourselves. And you can, I think I've mentioned this before in other circles, that you can kind of go to social media and look at what these reflections of yourself are kind of reflecting back. Judgment about what this person didn't do, what this person did. I'm feeling so great, and it's not that the ego is a bad thing. We're not judging the ego, or else we would be exactly like that. However, but it's just the subtlety, and even that's just the thin veil between spiritual awakening and ascension. Ascension, you recognize it's only you, right? So my first task is really understanding the mind, really trying to figure out where this off switch is for the ego, for the mind. And I guess, it's understanding that unless we are operating at that level of awareness where we can pinpoint what is us, or who we are as soul, as God, as the divine, versus this mind-body construct, the story that the mind is telling, unless we can pinpoint that, oftentimes it's the mind, the ego is the one that's practically the one in charge, running our lives, directing our decisions and ideas, and motivating us to engage in all the dysfunctional, negative, destructive, and self-defeating behaviors that we engage in, right? And so, see, it's our ego that prioritizes feeling better over actually being better. It's the ego that says, I'm a work in progress, or I'm working on it. So then when we concentrate on feeling better, we are concentrating on the selfish short-term goal, not the route that takes longer, but eventually leads to happiness and contentment. It is why we project judgment out, because you or the appearance of another appearing less than me actually inflates the ego or inflates my false sense of self of how great I appear to be, not understanding that that which I blame, that which I attack, that which I judge is just a reflection of myself. And so you can look at those moments and recognize that whether it's you or whether you're recognizing it in another, that they're blaming themselves. Oh, this person is holding some level of insecurity. Oh, this person is holding some level of fear based on what they're projecting out to another. Oh, look at the people who are hating on me. Look at the people, who are talking about me and all that. That's, no one's talking about you. Everyone is playing a scene that is reflecting your judgment of yourself. Your hating, and when I talk about self, I mean the capital SELF, which is soul, right? And so it's our self-judgment, it's our self-criticism, it's our self feeling of not being enough that we are now projecting outward, right? And so thus we engage in foolish, self-sabotaging behavior such as arming ourselves, lying, manipulating others, hiding, fleeing, or attempting to win over someone by identifying with an egoic concept that, look at how great I am, right? But it's really just the insecurity of the ego. And these are the stories that the ego tells, again, that we identify with. In fact, most of what we experience in our mind is just a story that the ego is telling. Stories about who we are, what we're capable of, what we're good or bad at, what this experience represents. Don't go in there, you're going to embarrass yourself, etc., etc. And let me pause here to go, hi, I'm James, the Ascension Coach, and I help people connect with higher states of consciousness, align with their higher selves, and discover their soul's purpose. If this content resonates with you, I definitely encourage you to comment, like, follow, and subscribe. And if you need coaching on your own spiritual awakening journey, your own ascension journey, please send me an email or contact me in a DM and let's talk. And I definitely want to alert you to a free 3-day masterclass I have coming up called Soul Power. And it's really about identifying your true self, your true power, and how to shift into the reality of your desire. There's also a VIP access version it's $55, which allows you one-on-one access to me, access to the group for a month, some other perks along the way. The link for that to sign up for the free version and the VIP version is in the description below. So going back to the ego does not understand what anything is for. And so it misrepresents people, it misrepresents things, it misrepresents places and experiences to meet its own goal. Goals that have nothing to do with my divine self on a soul level. So when I identify with the ego, that the mind and the body, that this belief that I'm a separate self, this belief that there is someone other that is doing this to me, I lose sight of my true self and make an agreement with the misrepresentation. Because you're at every moment identifying with a false self or a true self. Nobody, when they're in mind, when they're in ego, is who you think they are. Everyone is soul. Everyone is the divine. Everyone is the God self. Most of society, most of what we call this 3D reality and the appearance of 8 million people are not who you think they are. It's the personality itself is an egoic construct. So nobody is who you think they are, right? So it's recognizing that I am something infinitely greater than this, or even how someone shows up, that they are something infinitely greater than this, right? The ego does not want you to see what anything is for. It only wants you to see its presumptions and preconceived concepts of what something is for. In other words, it wants you to see what it wants you to see, or it sees what it wants to see. It doesn't see the truth, it sees appearances. It sees that which is going to give it a sense of importance, a sense of security, a sense of inflation. It's not going to give you the other view. It's not going to give you the truth, right? And what this means is that whether it's a person, place, thing, or experience, or thought, everything that happens around us and in us is actually neutral. It has no meaning. It is without meaning at all. It's completely neutral. It's the ego that gives the interpretation of every experience. It's the ego. The ego doesn't see it according to truth. The egoic mind usually attaches some kind of judgment to it, such as this is good or this is bad, this is right or this is wrong. It draws attention to itself oftentimes as a victim. Look what happened to me. Look what life is doing. Look what this person is doing. Look what maybe my parents or are doing. It sees itself as a separate self, and it sees life as happening to it instead of it making life happen. Right? So either the person, place, thing, or experience represents something good or bad, or the thought about a person, place, thing, or experience represents something good or bad. And as Shakespeare said, no doubt, being in soul, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking. The mind makes it so. Right? So it is the egoic mind that gives everything all the meaning that it has for us, but not without our agreement, not without our consent, not without our misidentification with the personality self, with the separate self, with the mind-body construct as who we really are. So to test this, one only needs to ask this question: who am I? Or what is this experience without the thought about this, without the story that I'm telling myself about this? The person that you believe has offended you, the empty bank account, the lack of clients showing up. Examine the story that you have around that. Maybe self-defeating, maybe a story of frustration, maybe a story of what they're doing. Who are you without the story? Without the commentary that's playing in your head around this experience? The ego does not see the vibrant life of all things that is before our interpretation, that is before our labels, that is before the meanings, that is before concepts. Before these things, everything is divine, everything is majestic, everything shines forth its inherent beauty. Everything is for the purpose of either reflecting the truth or for the purpose of pointing one back to the truth. The truth, that means that everything that shows up is divine. Everything that shows up is shown up for you to either reflect the truth of who you are or to point you back in the direction of who you are. So every experience, every person that appears to have done us wrong is shown up as a gift. It's shown up as a teacher. It's shown up to say, I love you, I value you, you're amazing. This is what you need to work on. Or this is who you really are. But we miss the message, getting caught up in the details. There is a philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard, who said, once you label me, you negate me. This means the same as you limit me, you restrict me, which is what we do predominantly. When we label something, when we give a meaning to something, we are now putting it in a box and saying it can only be this. And so there's not even a level of consciousness, a level of awareness open enough to know the truth of what this has shown up for, right? And this we do to ourselves when we label ourselves that I'm this way, I'm no good, I'm a bad person, this never happened for me, look what everybody else is able to accomplish but me, et cetera, et cetera. We are now boxing ourselves in, and we're limiting our level of awareness to see that, first of all, we're not even this mind-body construct, but that we are something greater than this, that is limitless. I wrote from the Tao Te Ching, one of my favorite books, that the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao, meaning even the moment you call it God, you are limiting it. Even the moment, all these names and concepts that we use in our effort to try to define something, the moment we define it, we limit it. We limit it to our concept of what this is. But all of this is the unknown, the limitless, appearing as the known, appearing within limits, right? So every experience, every person, the truth of who they are, the truth of every experience is something more abundant, more prosperous than what we have labeled it as. So once we name something, or rather the ego names something, it becomes a concept, an idea, or some unnecessary and flawed concept that the ego has created to serve its own self-interest. There is an entry in the Course in Miracles that says, I have given everything in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place, all the meaning that it has for me. Anytime we find ourselves feeling or experiencing some negative thought or emotion about ourselves or some person or experience, we can circle back and be the witness that we've given some event which on its own has no meaning, is neutral, and given it a negative judgment with our thoughts, and now we box it in and say this is that. It can't be anything other than that, though it's not that, and it's something far greater. But this is how we limit ourselves, because even when we place a negative meaning or interpretation, or rather the ego places negative meaning or interpretation on an event, that event is a reflection, is an outpicturing of who we are. And so whether we limit it in our mind or whether we limit something or label something negative out there, we are all in essence limiting us. Everything gets to be what it is. As I asked before, what is it without the story? Who are you without the story? It's really just stepping back and being the witness of the mind, of the ego that's given the interpretation. Watch the story. Don't immerse yourself in the story. Just watch it. Just be aware of it. The truth of who you are is awareness. So the truth is all is love. Love is all that is. And so every person, every place, everything, every experience, however joyful it appears to you or however grievous it appears, is pointing us in the direction of this truth, the truth of who we are as love, as soul, as the divine. And most of us are unconscious of this truth. And so we miss the message, again, getting lost in the details. So one of the ways to shift out of the ego is be the witness of the interpretation of the story that's playing out. If you miss it at the level of mind, stop it at the level of heart. Every thought we have given some negative judgment to that slips our mind, we stop it at the level of the heart. We do this by noticing the sensation, noticing how this experience, how this person, even our own character avatar, how that makes me feel, how this thought makes me feel, how this experience makes me feel, or whatever. So we just notice the sensation within us, and we just be aware. We remove judgment from it, or at least we be aware that we have placed judgment, or that the ego has placed judgment on it. And just let our awareness rest there. Because the moment we immerse ourselves, the moment we react to an experience, or every experience that causes us to react, whether it's a thought or a thought experience, meaning something that shows up in your 3D, we are in kind creating more like experiences of that. So just be the witness. Just be the one who is aware that you are dreaming the dream, that the dream isn't real. Just be awareness, consciousness, God, or the God self who is watching it all. Create that level of attachment. You are not your mind, you are not your body, you are not the events that are playing out. It's just a dream. You are dreaming the dream. It is a play of consciousness. But you are only the consciousness. That is the truth of who you are. So, having said that, again, we are journaling. We are on the journey we are on the Ascension Journey, just traversing through just my journal entries. And I recognize that my next entry was about the mind, grabbing a hold of the mind, understanding how the mind operates. And there'll be more entries. We'll dive a little bit deeper as we go along into that as well. But just be aware. Even in this moment, just be aware of the you that's watching this, that's listening to this. In that moment, in this moment, you put some space between you and this dream. And that is everything toward you identifying, walking in, and operating in the power of your higher self. Having said that, I love and I appreciate you. Namaste.